So let's get started. This is what we're going to be covering this morning or this evening. So if you've seen our previous sessions, it will be a similar process. We'll look at what happens in the speaking section. We'll look at speaking task 4 and an example. We'll look at some model answers and how you can improve on your first ideas, how you can structure your answers, how to prepare. We'll give you some tips, and we will have time for some questions at the end, I hope. But as always, please don't be shy. Ask us your questions in the chat. Yes, Philip, any questions are good. We love questions. We like to hear from you. And we're going to be asking you a couple of questions too. So please feel free to answer in the chat or use the Q&A button. Philip, did you want to get us started talking about the speaking section?
I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you.
In the speaking section of the MET, so MET has 4 tests. It assesses 4 language skills: writing, listening, reading, and speaking. Speaking is the last one. And MET is a computer-delivered test, as you know, and there are 5 tasks that you have to do, one after the other. The entire process takes 10 minutes. And for the past few sessions, we've been talking about tasks 1, 2, and 3. So we're now in task 4. What happens in task 4? Well, in task 4, as you can see on the upper right, you're tasked to explain the advantages and disadvantages of a given situation. You have a situation, what's good about it, what's bad about it. You won't really have a lot of time to prepare, to think of your thoughts, because it's meant to be a spontaneous and live production of speech, just like in the video. You would have 90 seconds to give your response, in contrast to the 60 seconds that you have for the previous 3 tasks. And these 5 tasks are arranged in increasing level of difficulty. They become harder and harder as you go along. So we're here on the part 2, the more challenging part of the test, which is why Emily and I are very happy that you found time to be here tonight so that you can get some practice in for this more difficult part.
Absolutely. Very happy. And it's nice to see some returning audience members as well. So welcome back. But yeah, Philip, as you said, part 2 is where the speaking section does get a bit more challenging. You're going from, talking about something you can see in front of you, talking about your own life, your own opinions. Now we're moving into talking about situations you may not have personal experience. You're not asked to talk about a time in your life. You're asked to think about a situation, and in task 4, explain what's good and what's maybe not so good about that situation. The topics will still be relatable and understandable. We're not testing your knowledge of complicated concepts or anything like that, but the demands of the task are a little bit more challenging. So I think we should probably just get right into it. I've got an example to show you. And just like in the test, we will show it on the screen and read it aloud. And then I'll start the timer. So you can feel how 90 seconds feels when you're trying to think of an answer, and have a go. We encourage you to think about, if this were your test, what would you say? No one can hear you, so just give it a go, and think about some advantages and disadvantages of the situation. And please feel free to share in the chat, either during or afterwards, your ideas. What do you think are the advantages and disadvantages? So, task 4. Your friend is starting university next year and is thinking about going to a university that is in the downtown area of a major city. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this idea? You have 90 seconds to talk. You should say as much as you can. Begin speaking now.
How well did you do? Were you able to maximize the 90 seconds that you had to demonstrate the language? Did you answer the question? Yeah. So what advantages and disadvantages did you think of? Um, the beauty of the question is that there are many ways to answer. Could you try to list some of the advantages and disadvantages that you thought of? I don't know about you, Emily, but I am excited to find out what our participants came up
Me too. I would love to hear from you and tell us what you thought of. What are the positives and negatives, the ups and downs of attending a university in a downtown area of a major city? Philip, can you think of one or two to share with us while our friends are typing?
with. Our friend Rachel has pointed out an advantage that I definitely agree with. An advantage is that there would be lots of coffee shops. As somebody who is addicted to coffee, I definitely agree. If there is a coffee shop or a cafe in every corner, then it's easy to get a caffeine fix wherever you are.
A
Sheila
great
Marie,
point.
thank you. Sheila Marigama says a positive is you get to explore new surroundings. Hmm. Yeah, in a downtown area, I imagine there's a greater concentration of different kinds of experiences, maybe more businesses, maybe. And therefore, every place is a brand new environment because there's such a variety of things going on. Great, Sheila. I,
I suppose another advantage, if you're living in the downtown area, it would be easier to explore those new surroundings because you're right there in the middle. You don't have to travel to get
mm,
into the city to explore. You're already there. So another advantage that we could expand on that idea and add some more detail about why that's an advantage. And the coffee shops as well. I agree. I also am a huge coffee fan. So having easy access to many coffee shops would be definitely an advantage. Um, and the major disadvantage is that it can be expensive. Yes, that is a major disadvantage. Cities do tend to be more expensive, especially major cities, and being right in the downtown area, that could be a problem. It could be definitely a disadvantage. Daisy says the disadvantage is the rent for a house or accommodation is expensive. I imagine it would be, yes, in a major city.
indeed. And Faith Pauline Soriano says major cities have various industries, providing students with more internship and job opportunities. Yeah, so for that part of the population, maybe because of what you said, that there are many kinds of industries, therefore many different types of internships, as you mentioned, they would definitely want uh, access to these work opportunities, which may not be present if you were somewhere at the periphery or somewhere far away from the center. I
Absolutely. Sorry, Philip, go ahead. I think I spoke over you there.
Oh no, sorry, apologies. I do it all the time too.
I was just
Yeah.
going to add the thing I really like about what Faith Pauline said is that's very relevant to the question you're being asked about studying at university and internships for students is a big part of studying at university. So you're not only thinking about living in a city and why that might be good or bad, but living in a city as a student while studying. So that's a really great way to make sure you're staying on topic and you're referring back to the exact question you're being asked. You're not thinking generally, you're thinking very specifically about the question you're being asked. So that's a great way to tie it in.
Absolutely. And this is similar to what Gismund Forrest Arnold says, that another advantage is that our friend may be able to study at a well-known university and maximize your chance to find a good job, since there's that great concentration of wealth industry in the downtown.
Good. I
Great.
feel all of these responses, these are we're forming a very good idea of what we could say. And I'm sure when you were all practicing with these ideas, you did a great job. Um, and the hardest part probably of MET Speaking Task 4, in my opinion, is coming up with the ideas. And once you've got some ideas and you start talking, you might find that the ideas keep coming and you think of more ways to connect it back to the topic, or you think yes, there's uh, going to be more industry, but that does lead to higher cost. So it's more expensive. So you're thinking about both the advantages and the disadvantages in your answer. In this specific example, but also generally, I think once you start talking and the ideas start coming, you can find plenty to say in 90 seconds. It feels like a long time now, but when you're actually speaking, I think it goes a little bit faster than you expect. What do you think, Philip? In your experience with MET, does the 90 seconds feel like a long time or a short time?
Fortunately, both are true sometimes because some people they freeze and they end up thinking of nothing at all, and therefore they are unfortunately stuck with silence. But when you feel more confident, you get to brainstorm more easily, and as Emily said, you get to see the concepts from different. Some of you mentioned industry, some of you mentioned internships, some of you mentioned rent. And the more that you, one thing leads to another, and therefore you have more chances of elaborating at these initial thoughts that you came up with. Because as we've emphasized in the past few sessions, unlike writing, where you have all the time in the world to prepare, speaking is live and spontaneous. So you're like Emily and I right now, we're making things up as we go along. So uh, you're also going to be doing the same thing when you're speaking. So your ability to connect the last thing you said to the next thing that you say is very much part of doing well in this part of it.
That's a great point. We have a couple of examples. We do have
Hmm.
three, but I think you've already given us a good list of advantages and disadvantages. So I think we can move on to looking at a response that not only lists them but connects them together in some way. So let's take a look. Philip, would you do me the honors of reading the response? I always read them too quickly.
Apologies, I read them slowly. Uh,
No, no, no,
my
it's perfect.
thank you. I'll accept that. My friend is thinking of going to a university in a downtown area of a major city, and I think this idea has both advantages and disadvantages. First, for the disadvantages, I think that the downtown area of a major city can be very crowded and noisy, and this might be distracting from studying. There are many things to do, yes, but this is also a problem if you want to study because you might not focus on your education. Also, living in the downtown area of the city will be very expensive, and students might not be able to pay for that. However, I also think there are many advantages. If you live downtown in a city, you can walk everywhere. So you don't need to pay for a car or a taxi. You can just go anywhere that you want. There will be many things to do in the city. So you have a lot of options for entertainment and things like that when you need to take a break from study. More crowded means there will be more people to meet. So you might meet many interesting people that are not at your university. So this can be a good thing to improve your life. I think going to university in a downtown area can be a great opportunity for my friend. Wow, this person, whoever wrote this, definitely had a lot of ideas when it came to the downtown area. And this kind of elaboration is beautiful. This shows a wide range of language, and there were clear markers as well of when the person's talking about the disadvantages and signaling a transition to advantages. And from one advantage to the next and to the next, there are transitions as well. And I, there you go. Um, Helpfully, it has been color coded into this. Very crowded and noisy, and this might be distracting from studying. You might not focus on your education. Expensive. Which are the disadvantages? The advantages in green, many things to do. You can walk everywhere, a lot of options for entertainment, and more people to meet. So there is comparison, there's relationship between the ideas. It's, as you can see, there's also elaboration going on here. It's not a bullet point list. It's not a list. It's not merely a listing of ideas, but also elaboration and showing how they're related. This is a great response. Whoever wrote this really knew what she was doing. I think so. Wouldn't you think so, Anna?
Thank you for the excellent analysis of that answer, Philip. I appreciate that. Everything I was planning to say, you've already said.
Oh,
Um,
so
no, 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 no. It's fantastic. One thing I just want to mention is, um, in this response, you've got, let me see where it is. Here we go. The parts I've underlined here, you've they don't just go straight into a list of advantages and a list of disadvantages. There is a short, but there is an introduction um, where the person sort of summarizes the question, and there is sort of a concluding sentence at the end as well. You don't have to provide any kind of conclusion. You're not being asked, what should my friend do? You're being asked, what are the advantages and disadvantages? However, for the higher level responses, we do tend to see some sort of wrap up at the end. It's not necessary, you're not required to do it, but it can help to sort of finish off your answer really nicely and give you another opportunity to show what you can do in English. Shall we take a look at a second example? We don't have any comments from our audience about this one, so let's move on to um, the
I have
last
one.
one. Oh, yeah.
Like I think you're definitely correct that doing the first part, my friend is going to university, essentially repeating the language of the text. It's not wrong. But then again, if you do it, you're taking precious time away from coming up with original language. Like, so, I mean, the examiners give us credit for English that is our own. So if you are just reading it, that's not your English. That's the exam's English. So given that you have such a short budget of time, it's a small budget, we only have 90 seconds. If it may be good to maximize those 90 seconds by giving original language. So that's it. That's my comment.
No, it's 100%, 100%. It's always better to rephrase into your own words
Mhm.
because, as Philip says, that helps you to maximize your time. It shows what you can do, and you're not borrowing language from the prompt. You're using your own language. I'm really glad you brought that up. It's an excellent point. So try to phrase or rephrase the topic. If you're going to give some kind of introduction like this, use your own original words as much as possible, and that will help maximize your score. Thank you for that. Um, in this example, in the interest of time, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's quite long. But here it's still using language from the prompt, but at least has changed the advantages and disadvantages to positives and negatives. It's a small change, but it's a little bit different from the prompt. But I'm sure we could go even further and change that whole sentence so that it's completely in our own words. Um, In this response, it's giving the same ideas, the same advantages and disadvantages from the previous one. But it's a little bit it's more structured. Um, you've got again some kind of conclusion. Therefore, I would suggest um, you can still experience the city, but leave when you need to if you choose to live outside and travel into the city. It's offering some kind of a solution, which again is not required as part of the rating scale, but it can just help to round out your answer. You've got advantages in green there and disadvantages in orange. Um, so you can see in this answer, there's more elaboration. It's talking in more depth about what the positives might be, what the negatives might be, um, and using more sophisticated vocabulary, which we've mentioned in a few of our sessions already, um, where you're using words that have a Philip, how do you phrase it? You're really I love the way that you explain sophisticated vocabulary.
Sophisticated vocabulary, like fancy words, like more
Fancy.
precise words, more
Precise words,
precise.
exactly. Yeah.
There.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
You've got things like flexibility and opportunities and crowded, noisy. There's more precise words here. And the last point that I wanted to mention about this response is the use of connectors. And that can really help elevate your language. It can show your the broadness of your vocabulary range. It can show the complexity of your grammar knowledge, and it can help your response flow. So you've got things like another advantage is, however, therefore, I would suggest also. So it's always a good idea for all parts of MET speaking and your writing to learn and use connectors to really help lengthen your sentences, help your responses be more coherent and sound or have a logical flow. Did you
Definitely.
have anything else to add, Philip, before we talk about how to prepare for task 4?
I mentioned some of this earlier. That's why it was really nice that this was also part of the Model 3 answer, because having these transitions really make it easier for you to flow from one part to the other. So please have these things when you're doing your responses for task 4.
So, some last quick words. We have a couple of minutes left for things you can do to practice on your own um, outside of official resources or maybe doing a review with 9.09er. But make sure when you're practicing for task 4 and when you're doing task 4 in your real exam, make sure you talk about both advantages and disadvantages in your response. It's not enough to just say there are some advantages, but etc. You need to say what those advantages or disadvantages are, and you need to mention both sides, not just talk about one angle of it. And that will help you to maximize your score for task completion. That way you're going to make sure you're really completing the task. And as we talked about a bit earlier, another tip for task completion is making sure that the advantages and disadvantages you give are relevant to the specific topic in your question. So in the example we've just gone through, you're not just talking about the benefits of living in a city, but you're talking about the benefits of studying in a major city. So how to practice? Keep practicing coming up with lists of pros and cons. Think about positives and negatives. Think about a range of different topics, things you come across in your everyday life, and just have a quick think about, oh, what could be the positives? What could be the negatives? What could I say if this was my MET speaking task 4 question? I would also suggest reading texts or watching videos. For speaking preparation, specifically watching videos will be helpful to see how people are speaking. But where somebody presents two sides of something, where they talk about the positives and the negatives, and practice summarizing what you watched in your own words. So Philip mentioned about original language and changing the words from the prompt into your own words. So this is a good way to practice that. See how someone else is presenting two sides of something and summarize it into your own language in 90 seconds. Don't forget to practice with a timer. Philip, any other preparation tips you would like to add before we finish?
I guess the only thing I'd like to point out is in the real world, we have very strong opinions about a wide range of things. Whether I'm sure you have your own favorite topics, Emily, and everyone else here does too. And our opinions, which we hold close to heart, which we cherish, they're our favorites. And sometimes it's difficult for us to realize that there's another side to our favorite opinion. And getting into the habit of approaching a topic from multiple perspectives helps us to do well in speaking task 4 because this mental flexibility is going to serve us well, especially when we try to brainstorm and come up with things to say about the other side. In our experience at 9.09er, thank you for mentioning that, is that one of the difficulties that people have is they have lots of ideas for one side because that's their favorite side. They have a primary opinion about it. But sometimes the difficulty is, what about the others? And specific, so getting practice, getting training, as Emily said, watching people present both sides of an issue, and maybe your own in your own life, your favorite topics, your the beliefs you hold strongly and close to heart. Maybe you could try researching as well. What do people who disagree with you have to say about this topic that you wish? And I believe Gismond Forrest Arnold just presented an answer to our earlier exercise where he gives a suggestion of what he thinks his friend should do. Um, and this is great. That's a great way to wrap up, though it's optional and you're not required to do so. But I would wrap up the answer in a similar way myself. And as you can see on the screen in front of you, these are some of the resources of 9.09er if you are interested in preparing for your exams.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise this morning once again, Philip. And I hope that the session has been helpful for all of you at home. We do still have a few more sessions coming up. We are halfway through our series of 8, which is hard to believe. It's gone very quickly. But every Thursday, we will be hosting this series of MET Masterclasses. Next week, we will be looking at speaking task 5. And then in August, we'll be focusing on listening, reading, and writing. So I hope you join us. You can register at michiganassessment.org for these next sessions. And if you have any questions following this session, please feel free to reach out to 9.09er or Michigan Assessment. Our email address is info@michiganassessment.org. It's there on the screen. Thank you very much, Philip. Thank you to our audience. Thank you, Rachel, for helping us manage the webinar today. And I hope we'll see you next week.
Bye.